Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Ian McKellen,
Hello.
Andy Serkis, Richard Armitage, and Martin Freeman.
Hello.
Thanks.
Hello, sir.
Are you sure?
Thank you all for being here in front of this very excited crowd here today at the Apple Store. Where to start? Martin, can we start with you?
Yes.
Is that okay, please?
Yes.
This is you giving your interpretation of Bilbo.
Yeah.
You were given that, the chance to show us this gentleman that we know and love already, but in a younger life, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Was there an element of you being allowed to bring that to life and inject how you saw him into it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was all that. Pete expects you to come with what you've got to bring, and I mean, he expects that with all of us. And it's as usual. It's a collaboration between what he thinks, what you think, and what Tolkien has written, and what the adaptation provides. So I felt I had very free reign with it, but at the same time, of course, as you say, it's partly been established cinematically before by Ian Holm. Years before, so I looked closely at what Ian did. I rewatched the films with great pleasure, actually, and just pressed pause and rewind on Ian Holm's bits. I just saw what I could use. I mean, just what is useful and what is playable.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to tie myself up in knots, thinking I've got to do every single thing with a view to how Ian Holm would have done it. But if there were little vocal tics or physical things that I can throw in there to kind of let the audience think, okay, this is the same person, then I was able to use that.
Was it quite weird watching those, knowing that you were about to enter that world in a way as well, in terms of...
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I honestly think they're so strong as films, and they do their job so well in sort of transporting you that even at that stage, I wasn't kind of freaked out. I genuinely wasn't freaked out by the thing of I'm going to be in it. It was just like you lose yourself as a punter, and I watched Return of the King yesterday, all 4 hours of it, just for pleasure. I did. I honestly did. Yeah. Yes, because I knew I was seeing Peter and I wanted to suck up to him. But no, I genuinely, because my son said, "Can we watch Lord of the Rings?" I said, "Yeah, which one?" And I just, because I like that one because it's got how we see how Gollum becomes Gollum at the beginning, and I really like that.
Speaking of which, there's an amazing scene with you two in this. It's quite spectacular, and you did this as one scene. It was the first thing you shot. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. It was the first. In fact, it was the very, very first day of 276 days of shooting. Pete thought it'd be a good place to start. It's the riddles in the dark passage from the Hobbit, and we did exactly that. We treated it like one continuous piece of theatre. So Martin was exploring the world of playing Bilbo Baggins, and Pete thought it would be cool for the crew to settle back into the Middle Earth experience with that very, very intense scene, and so we just basically over the course of about 10 days we filmed. We sort of literally started and went to the end of the scene, which is about a 12-minute scene, just time after time, and Martin, it was a fantastic way of working, actually. Really thrilling.
Yeah, it was lovely. It helped me discover who Bilbo was, and because you're playing Bilbo in a life and death situation, and that's it's a more interesting way of finding out who he is than a sort of city down scene. This was like him in extremis, and it's a good way to find him.
Peter Jackson said it was so important to him because this film also brought back characters that we've seen, yourself obviously, and Gollum as well. But he said if you weren't willing to come back, he probably wouldn't have directed the film.
That's not what he told me. When we were doing negotiations, I wrote. I very well remember the email which made it very, very clear that John Hurt was standing by, and a lot of other actors who could have played Gandalf. But anyway, well, that's very sweet of him, and I know. Equally, I could say that I wouldn't have come back to play Gandalf if Peter Jackson hadn't been directed it, but that's not true because I was very prepared to do it with Guillermo del Toro.
Richard, for you, what was it like stepping into this, this world that there was family there already in terms of going across to New Zealand and becoming part of this, but in terms of bringing Thorin to life?
I mean, it was amazing, and I was a fan of the books and the trilogy So to go to New Zealand with all of that trust already in place was brilliant, and all of his crew come back and work with him time and time again. He inspires loyalty in everybody. So I kind of took a bit of that for my character. But yeah, it was thrilling, and we really were made to feel so welcome and part of his family.
You couldn't have picked a taller man for a dwarf as well.
I know,
really.
that's what I said on the phone when they asked me to come audition, yeah.
Right, we're going to throw out some questions, then we'll come back and get those clips when they're ready. So who has a question in our audience? Young man right there with a great scarf on.
How difficult was it getting the height proportions correct?
Who's that question to? Anyone? Getting the height proportions correct. How
Well, it can be absolute misery because there are various ways of doing it, but the most extreme way of doing it is for the actors who have to be taller to be separated from the actors who have to be smaller, and you're in different parts of the same studio with a camera photographing each of you, and which means that the actors can't see each other's faces and have to have the other person's words coming through an earpiece. And I think all actors agree that they're only really happy if they're able to look into the eyes of whoever they're acting with, and so things can be spontaneous, and that's what you want in a film. So a lot of imagination had to go on, and it really did stretch your technical ability. It's not always as bad as that, but that's not easy at all. I didn't find it.
Next question, please. Lady there with the...
This is a question for Andy, and I absolutely loved your book on being Gollum. I've read it about 5 times. I read it for the first time when I was about 12 and got told to stop rereading it. But I was just wondering if you would ever write another one, maybe from the perspective of being a second unit director, because I would love to read that.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that was an extraordinary... Yeah, I mean, just for those of you who don't know, a big surprise, or part of my unexpected journey, I had to get that in, but sorry, it's really tedious. I have said that a few times. But no, it was... Peter asked me to direct the second unit sort of literally a month before principal photography started, which is a real honour and a great challenge. And so I, you know, I thought I was going back to do Gollum for 2 weeks and ended up being down there for a year and a half directing for 200 days and got to work with these incredible guys. And I mean, it was a truly extraordinary situation because I've been heading towards directing for some time, but normally when you start off and your kind of debut feature as a director is like you're shooting for about 30 days with one camera and a bunch of actors in maybe 2 or 3 locations, and that's what I thought was going to happen. And then literally I got an email from Peter saying, come down and do this. So suddenly faced with you know, huge crew, 150 crew and technocranes and 30, you know, 48 frames a second and 3D and shooting aerials and battle sequences and working on scenes with fine actors. So it was a real challenge. And I mean, I don't think it's probably something I'll ever write a book about, but it was a truly memorable experience.
How would you feel about directing yourself?
That's quite. I mean.
You do,
you know,
in a
actors
sense,
you do actually.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I think we all probably did on this movie, to a certain extent. You know, I mean, Peter chooses self-reliant actors, people who, you know, actors who can make choices, who aren't just who are a combination of very good listeners and can collaborate, but at the same time, you know. What he loves as a director is being able to. We did this thing called because we're shooting digitally. We could do rolling resets, which means you don't have to stop everything and then you know, sit down and talk about it each time. We just literally reset positions, and because you're not wasting film, you could just literally roll the camera, and it works fantastically well, doesn't it? As an actor, for trying out new things, and that's the way that Peter loves to work, is getting millions of choices, so that when he goes to edit the film, he can the writing process sort of continues on, and that was what he encouraged me to do as a second unit director, was to do the same thing.
Do you have an equally as nice way of asking everyone to take another take? Because he has a little phrase, doesn't he?
He says one more for luck. Yeah. I tried to do that, but nobody really paid attention.
No one's as nice as Peter, basically. We're going to show this clip now. You really play on that.
Who does the voice for Gollum?
I know this old guy who hangs around King's Cross Station.
You really play on that kind of that double thing in this, and it's brilliant to watch kind of unfold.
It was. I mean, that was something that really evolved during Lord of the Rings. Actually, the sort of the separation of Gollum's personality into Smeagol, the kind of the naive, sort of innocent side of his personality, which actually ends up being the more manipulative, sort of passive-aggressive side. Funny enough, but well, not funny enough, but you know. But at this point. Because in the book of The Hobbit, in fact, it is just Gollum really, but we wanted to keep that so that when Bilbo comes along and comes and meets him for the first time, he's faced with this dual personality, which would provide more, more confusion and more weirdness than if it were possible.
Let's get some more questions. Let's go over this side if there's anyone over there who wants to.
This is for Mr. Circus. I just watched a video where you explained motion capture technology a little bit, and it seems like you've kind of become an expert in that area. Was that a decision for you to take those kind of roles, and is there anything you like in particular about it?
When we finished Lord of the Rings, I'd fully expected just to return to traditional acting, and I thought that would be the end of it, because there wasn't I just thought, in a way it was weird, I just thought that technology was invented for that role. It didn't really occur to me that there would be anything else beyond that. But literally on one of the last days of doing the reshoots on Return of the King, Peter asked me to do King Kong, and I was just like, "Are you kidding?" So that then opened up, and once that was a real watershed kind of moment, because I realised actually that this technology could be used. It's such a liberating tool for actors. It enables you to, you're not dictated by your own physical size or shape or colour or whatever. You can play anything. This is a liberating tool, and that's why I love it, and that's why I've become really so adamant about sort of propelling it forward as a it's because it's not really a type of acting. It's just it's a technology which enables you to play many different roles, and that's what I've fallen in love with about it. Is that it's really about creating an inner life, which is what we all do. It's just a different way of manifesting it on screen. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Next question, lady down in front. Yeah.
This is for Martin. I was just wondering what the most rewarding and most challenging thing is about filming in New Zealand.
Are you from New Zealand?
No, I'm from Australia.
Okay. The rewarding thing.
It's not a serious question, is it?
The rewarding thing is that it's very beautiful and it's very easy to work. They make it easy to work there. They're a very friendly bunch. It's familiar for Brits as well, because it's quite Anglo in its feeling. The challenging thing is just logistically, if you're not from the Antipodes, then it's a long way, So the challenging thing is being away from your family and home for 18 months, give or take. But yeah, that was all. And yeah, also the fact that no one can dress up ever, It's all rugby shorts and jandals, man. It's just wear a pair of shoes occasionally, please. Just get the laces in, something, That would be the challenging bit, but the positives way outweighed the negatives. It was a very, very welcoming, genuinely welcoming place to work. And also people want to know that you're enjoying it, don't they? I've never been asked in my life as much, how do you like our country? They want to make sure that you're having a good time in their country, which is very sweet.
And is that a case of kind of Peter's got this set up now over there that you literally walk in and he has everything there that he needs for these incredible productions? It's all set up and ready to go.
Yeah. He's got his own little kingdom there. Yeah, yeah.
Jackson Kingdom. Next question, please. Lady, should we go this one first? Then you can pass it back to that lady there.
Hi. Jumping ahead from the movie to onto the DVD release. One of my favourite things about the original trilogy is the cast commentary with the Fellowship and some of the other cast members. Can we expect commentaries from the entire company of dwarves?
Richard.
I have to be honest. My contribution to the on-set photography in that way was probably I was a little bit reticent about it. I find it difficult to not talk to a camera as Thorin, but yeah, you'll certainly get an awful lot from most of the dwarves. That's what I'll say.
It very much felt like a kind of, friendly gang mentality between you all?
Yeah, I mean, we went through a boot camp for 6 weeks of training, of learning how to move like dwarves and fight like dwarves. One of our stunt team was like a champion wrestler, and I remember going through this whole period of like wrestling with each other and finding a kind of physical language, which actually you see in Bag End when, maybe you guys haven't seen the film, but Dwalin and Balin meet and make contact in a certain way, which you'll see when you see the film. But that came out of an improvisation of wrestling, and so yeah, the bonding was great and happened on set and off set as well.
One of your fellow dwarfs was saying today that it got to the point where, because you spent so much time in makeup and in character, when you were not in makeup and in character, you kind of didn't recognise each other.
Yeah, I mean,
who's that again?
It's true, and I used to kind of cycle into the studio and walk through the gates, and they'd always ask me for my ID because I guess the crew don't recognise you because they only see you in that get-up, and I kind of like it though. I thought it was good. I liked the transformation, and it's good.
Okay, you got the microphone? Yes, go for it.
This is for Richard as well. I remember reading that you once said you often give a bit of yourself to a character. Do you think, as different and as varying as your range of characters that you so far have played have been, do you think you've taken a piece of each of those characters to play Thorin as probably one of your biggest roles so far?
Yes, I think so. I think that everything you do kind of leads up to the moment that you're in, and you do go back, and I look over past work that I've done, and it all kind of adds to the same marinade that you try and bathe the character in. But with this one, I found his kind of cantankerous nature the most challenging because I wanted him to be appealing to me, and I found myself in the book for a while disliking him, and I do think Tolkien rolls his eyes at him occasionally because he does go on and on and on, and he's very verbose. But we worked to try and find likable aspects of him. But yeah.
Next question.
Yes, I have tried to see and look for all the trailers, scenes I could. And the one that was really impressive for me is when they're in the Bilbo house and Gandalf introduced Bilbo all his new fellows for the journey. So, Ian, I would like to know how did you manage to remember all those names?
Yes, and I did learn them. I'm not sure. I could rattle them off. I won't bore you with that. But what would be difficult would be to remember who played them as well. I mean, the characters are easier to learn than the actors' names. And the scene in which the scene you're talking about when Gandalf is counting off the dwarves, it was my suggestion actually. I said I think the audience is going to want to try and identify who these guys are. They've met them once, but wouldn't it be good to repeat it again? And we do it another time in the movie as well, which you haven't seen. There we are. That's all I've got to say about that, I think.
We'll show that other clip right now, actually, because it's a good example.
Brilliant.
It's a great lead-in. Okay. It's a great example of them all being together in Bilbo's house. We've got time for a few more questions, so who hands up for questions if we can see?
Sorry, just wondering, how long did it take to get everyone like dressed up in the morning and stuff, like especially the dwarves and just everyone?
Each dwarf took about 2.5 to 3 hours. Some took longer. So it was they'd kind of call people in waves. So most calls in the morning would be 4:30 to be on set for 9. That was the first call. The second call was about 6 to be on set for 9 or 9:30. So they would stagger it so that you'd arrive on set in order. But it was a military maneuver getting those dwarves. It wasn't just the hair and makeup. It was kind of getting them ready into the costumes. And at the end of the day, the stench that came out of the portacom, the smell of dwarf, was really rank.
There's a fragrance there, surely it needs to be released.
Eau de dwarf.
Eau de dwarf. There was kind of crazy cooling machines that some of them had to wear.
Yeah, we all wore these. They're like vests that they give to racing drivers that you can plug into a cool pack, so it sort of lowers your body temperature because we were constantly overheating, and we were very well looked after. There was a cooling tent on set as well that they used to zip us into, but I was convinced that it was to stop the smell of dwarf kind of wafting over the soundstage.
Next question.
Right. How did the director make you feel at home without the without anything connected to finance, but on an emotional and spiritual and intellectual level, how did the director make you feel at home or comfortable? And did you have any major battles with the director? And can you tell us a bit about those, maybe in a humorous way? This is a question for all of the actors here.
Oh, we could be here
I know,
a long
but
time.
very quickly, it'd be interesting. Thanks.
The easiest way in which you're made to feel at home when you're filming in Wellington is that you are living probably no more than 10 minutes by car from where you will be working. That's very unusual. If you're filming in this city, in London, I live in the East End, and if I get to Pinewood, that's probably 2.5 hours to get there, and 2 hours coming back. That's 4.5 hours travel, 20 minutes there and back. So, and you bump into people at the weekends. I mean, you're all living in a small place. Everybody in New Zealand knows these films are happening and cares about them. They've probably got a relative working on the movie if they're not working on it themselves. All that makes you feel at home and relaxes you, and it just feels like the most expensive home movie ever made. But in a good sense, that focuses your attention.
Yeah, and they're very welcoming to your family. When people come and visit, it's always with open arms. They always kind of come round and bring goodies round, and they're very good with kids, with extended family, and they take more care of that than any other production I've known.
What about that question though with Peter in terms of going to him with things, with questions that you have, or Ian, you said, I suggested that we did that thing of we ran through the dwarfs' names again. Is Peter very much open to discussions like that, to you going to him with questions? Or
It's a question. I found it was a question of timing. I mean, yes, he's very open to contribution from everybody. Of course, it's collaborative business filmmaking, but the actors do arrive rather late in the process, after the sets have been designed, the costumes made, the makeup decided, the script written, but if you can just get in at that vital moment and pop into his mind, wouldn't it be a good idea if you'll be lucky, but you might arrive a day late when things have been decided. And do you find that, or was he open?
No, I know. I think he's very open at the time. I'm not as clever as you, so I don't think of those. I'm not, but I don't think of those questions in advance like you do. You always ask really, really intelligent questions that I wish I'd thought of, but my questions tend to be so kind of. My questions are quite last minute, I think, yeah.
I'll tell you one thing, though. He is one of the most collaborative directors in the sense that, as a wider company, if someone comes up with a good idea on the set, and whether it be a runner or a person doing the greens or doing the, people do feel incredibly valued as a crew. And are not, they might with other filmmakers be totally deferential, but with Peter Jackson has got this ability, and Fran Walsh and the whole team have got this ability to value or make everyone feel valued on the crew, so that everyone works immensely hard to make these films happen. And because I think if they genuinely have a really fantastic idea, then they can actually go up to him, and that is quite rare.
Let's get this little guy right here. Go on, sir.
This one's for Ian. How did it feel to get back with some of the old cast, like Andy and some other people? Like, we don't know who everyone
Elijah.
else is.
Well, when I saw Elijah, I almost burst into tears. I mean, he looked exactly the same, which is incredible. And the same for Elijah is sweetness through and through and through. And his spirit and his wanting to be involved in this movie. And we saw him again last week in New York, and wasn't he at the opening in New
Tokyo.
Zealand? His support for us is very precious. We never got to work together, which is a great pity, the old team. But the one member of the old team who I got to re-meet, well, actually I didn't meet her at all. I met her at a party. It was Kate Blanchett. We were in the same scene at the end of The Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings. We go off together in that boat. I don't know where we're going, actually. I don't think we've not got there yet. But we weren't in the same studio when we were shot separately. But then she comes back, and Hugo Weaving, they'd just been doing a play together. I know about plays, and we were discussing that. She runs a theatre in Sydney. We had lots in common. We were always nipping out to have a dirty fag together. I'm not referring to a dwarf. And the affection which we rapidly got for each other, you can see on the screen, and you'd swear that Gandalf and Galadriel and actually they were. It was lovely.
Yeah, your face when she appears in this film, you kind of like swoon.
It's lovely, yeah.
Swoon when she appears on the screen.
Yes.
Was there obvious points for where each film was going to, the first film was going to finish and the second film was going to start, in terms of how Peter and his team decided on that?
Well, it's it's a very, very organic process working with these particular filmmakers. The writing process, as we will all attest to, changes. Every single day there are rewrites. So you can't, and that's, it's very clever because most screenplays arrive and they're there and you learn them and that's it. But when they're this kind of size of project and things can move and shift and change and characters can develop and they really it's like a concerto really, and it's in three movements and of course this was originally going to be 2 films, so there was a particular structure to it, and of course we have shot so much material, so much wonderful material and lots of great detail, and as I say, you're bringing up different characters in the mix, and so that the actual structure has changed, and it's become 3 films now. So you set out with a particular idea, but you have to be, as a filmmaker, you have to be really, if you're working in this way, you have to be holistic about it, and and as characters shift and change, then so does the structure of the whole thing.
Right. Well. It's out in about a week's time. I think it's the 14th.
So 13th.
13th of the 12th of December.
Thursday.
And I actually shouted at the screen, "No!" at the end, because we've got a whole other year to wait for the next one. You're in for such a treat, and we've had such a treat having you all here this evening. Thank you so much. And thank you for your lovely questions as well.
Thank you.
A huge round of applause, please. Richard Armitage, Martin Freeman, Andy Serkis, and Ian McKellen. Thank you, James.